So I'm gonna be showing you how to grow a money tree from this to this. And when I say show you, I just mean I'm just gonna tell you what I did, because truthfully, I'm not really an expert. This is my first time growing a money tree and it did very well, but I really believe that, I strongly believe that it's all due to the sunlight. I have a sunroom here in my apartment. I will show you what it looks like, and really I think the key to money trees is getting the lighting just right. And let me show you what I mean by that. There are plenty of areas on this money tree where the leaves are burnt, and actually this happened recently. So I believe money trees need a good significant amount of light to grow really well, because all of this growth happened within a year. I got this so maybe a year and a month or two, so I guess maybe 14 months, because I got this June or July 2022. It's August now, so excuse me, that's a lot of growth. But you do want it to have a lot of light, but it also cannot take high strong light. So the windows that this sits in front of is a southwest facing window. However, there is a huge building here, so like around this time up until sunset, the sun is beaming directly in here. But from the morning all the way up until about now, it's blocked by a really tall building, so it's getting a lot of bright but indirect light. So it doesn't mean that you don't want to put it right in front of a window. It just means think about what's happening at this window. Is it getting highlight all the time, or is it getting like low light all the time? Because if it's getting low light all the time, it might grow but it may not flourish. So bright indirect light is the key. You definitely want it near a window for sure. When it comes to watering the money tree, I think it's pretty simple, because to me, it likes to dry out. It doesn't have a problem going a long time without water. I have gone over 2 weeks without watering it. In the winter time, I water it maybe every 2 weeks. In the summertime, weekly, but even in the summertime, it's gone like 2 weeks without being watered, even in the summertime. And it's in a regular greenhouse soil mix. I never took it out of the original pot that it was in. I just have it in a cover pot, and it provides a lot of good shade for other plants down there. I mean, well, let's say it used to provide a lot of good shade, because it's lost some of its lower leaves, so it's not shading the plant down here as much as it used to, but it can provide a lot of shade for other plants that can't take that much light. Now, as far as pests are concerned, I've experienced spider mites twice with this plant, and it's a little much to take care of it just because it's so big. Thankfully, I do have it on wheels, so that's a major key. If you're gonna get this plant and you want to grow it big and tall, you definitely need to put it on wheels, because it's gonna be a lot to start moving it around. It wasn't that, well, let me go back. It's not that you have to treat it often for pests if treated properly. It's just that those moments when you do, it can be it could be a big hassle. I'm really burning, and I think I'm gonna switch positions or something, because I'm literally toasting. Okay, I still want y'all to see the tree, but I don't want to die in the process. Okay, we moved. I had to sit down and get out of the direct sun. It's still kind of there, but I'm shaded for the moment. Anywho, when it comes to treating pests, when I had spider mites the first time, I used Affogato, which was a pretty good spray to kill spider mites. It lasted, I would say it went several months without a new reoccurrence of spider mites. Affogato does recommend that you reapply after a week or so. I did not. I used neem oil the second time, and both options work well. The only thing I would say in terms of this plant, if you want to keep it off longer, you do want something that leaves a residue. Sometimes people don't like an oily residue left on their plants. However, I believe that oily residue that gets left on the leaves is what keeps the pests from reoccurring so quickly. So a few months is not a long time. It's not a short period of time. That's not quickly, but I'm pretty sure that I've had longer periods of not having pests reoccur when I've used neem oil. However, if you can't stand the smell, you can't stand the oily film that it leaves behind, try Affogato. I will leave the links to in the description for both Affogato and the neem oil that I use. let me go back to watering. I did learn that let me say, I've read on the internet, because I don't know how true it is, but I've read on the internet that when watering the money tree, you don't really want to wet the trunk, because when I first got it, I was pouring the water all around the pot and getting it all over the trunk and everything. Online though, it said that could lead to rot. So with that being said, when I water it, I do keep it away from the trunk, and I just put it around the outside edges of the pot and make sure the soil is watered thoroughly. That can be a little difficult, especially if the money tree is this large, because, it could be a little difficult to figure out how much water does it need. It's different if you bring it to the shower. You can just rinse it and water it all the way through until you see the water run out. But when it's like this and you're trying to keep it more stationary, it's a little difficult to know exactly how much water it needs. So I started off with like 1 pitcher of water when it was much smaller, and I kind of worked my way up, and now it gets about a gallon of water each time I water it. That brings me to fertilization. This is the first plant that I feel that I've experienced an issue with fertilization. With most of my plants, I do fertilize them all throughout the year, because a lot of them grow all throughout the year, and a lot of my plants are in semi-hydro, so you got to keep feeding it something. This being that it's in soil, this plant's sensitive to fertilization, because throughout the winter I was having issues where the leaves were getting these weird spots on them. They were browning, crisping, and the leaves would fall off, and it was happening at a rapid rate, which is why all of these lower leaves are pretty much gone, because they all dropped from that. And I couldn't figure out what it was. It was getting the same amount of water, light, and everything. Well, I had adjusted the watering due to the weather, but the light was the same beyond it being winter time. But I am in Dallas, Texas, so that's not really a factor. And so I decided to try not watering it with the fertilizer, which I was using at the time, Jack's Houseplant Special. So I just watered it with plain old filtered water, and it stopped happening. So I deduced that this plant might be sensitive to over fertilization, and that may have caused it. So I think that's pretty much it. The leaves, like I said, I'll give you a slow pan and show you a close-up of everything. This tree is not perfect by any means, but it is still big, beautiful, and lush, and I love it. But there's a lot of burnt leaves lately because we're getting into the hottest part of the season. I've been rotating it, but yeah, it's still getting pretty burnt. And so you might be able to notice like one side is much taller than the other side, because for a while I wasn't rotating it. But yeah, I really love this plant. I got it as a large plant. When I say large, I mean like the trunk was large. It was pretty short. You'll see like in the before pictures that it was short, but it was always in this huge pot. So I feel like that could also be a factor. I don't know from experience, but I would imagine that even though you have a smaller plant, once it starts growing, give it a pot that it can really spread its roots in and really flourish in. Whereas me personally, I'm usually the person that waits till the last minute to revive plants, and I just let them get root bound. But I think this plant would appreciate having a lot of room. So that is pretty much it. This was a quickie. Thank you, Lisa, for requesting this video. If anyone has any requests, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I love video requests. I keep a little list of all my requests, and I just try to fit them in where possible. So this was a quickie, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it helpful.